Tropical Smoothie Cafe believes you deserve a getaway every day, not just once a year. Summer mocktail smoothies are here for a limited time at Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Mocktail hour on the pool deck is just a sip away. Visit one of Tropical Smoothie Cafe's 1,400 locations or order online or through their app. Hey everybody, welcome to Pink Shade. It's a special edition. It's a Wednesday edition. It's a welcome to Plathville edition. You guys probably have already heard, or hopefully you've heard, I put an interview out with Olivia earlier today, and we're going to cover Welcome to Plathville here, the episode with my friend Kate Casey. Hey, Kate.
Hey.
Hey. We're going to cover the episode briefly, and then we're going to talk about your interview you had with Kim, and then my interview I just had with Olivia, rebutting all the things that Kim said in your interview.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a chance to defend yourself for wanting to interview her also. All right, guys. So this episode of Welcome to Plathville was season 6, episode 3, called "They're All Freaks Here." And I think when Lydia Grace and Olivia went to a bar, I think what happened was Olivia said to Lydia Grace, like, every time I go to a bar with you, it's all these freaks come up. And she said, well, they're all freaks here, something like that. I think that's where it came from. But it's kind of a funny title that they would give, being that a lot of people think the whole Plath family are freaks.
Yeah.
They're all freaks here. So we get a couple of like key things in this episode, Kate. We get Olivia and Lydia Grace going out on the town. And it's so funny because Lydia Grace is like in a tank top and she's really doing it. And like last episode we saw, like, she got the like 1,000 box of condoms on her bedside table. And then Olivia's like, we're going out to a bar. And she's literally got on like a business lady suit. And, and she was talking about in her handbag, she was like, I have a protein bar, and then I have an apple in case that protein bar is not good enough. And then I have like a crossword puzzle, and I have my book. She was like,
geez.
And Lydia Grace is like, I just have like my tank top and my phone. I mean, I don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, does anyone ever call her LG? I would just do that.
Well, I guess because I'm from the South, Lydia Grace doesn't even
I
bother
think
me.
it's just the way Lydia Grace.
It's too many hard sounds.
I think so.
Yeah. If it was Lydia Ann, it would be easier to say.
Different.
Yeah. Yeah. Mary Lydia, we would do in my town. Everybody, we would marry something. And then later on after this, and some guys do approach them at the bar and stuff. And Lydia Grace is like, yeah, my name is Jackie. Great to meet you. And she's like, your name's not Jackie. She's like, okay, girl, you're not doing it right.
Right.
She's trying to teach her ways. So Lydia Grace lives in Arizona now, and then Olivia is in California. They're only 6 hours apart driving. So that's good. And then they go to the desert. They kind of go on a hike, and they both talk about how like grateful they are, for each other. And they're both in the same place in their life. And, they're only 18 months apart. And I think it's really great that they're kind of on this journey together because there's 10 kids in that family, and one has died, a brother, just like the Plaths. And so of the 9 of them, only 2 of them are out. Her brother, Nathan, she told me, did leave and then went back.
It is interesting, though, to watch this in juxtaposition to a Real Housewives show. It's so saccharine. Like when they're just talking to each other, and I just love you, and I just appreciate you. And it's like a lot of that. And then you watch another show like Love Island, and you're like, wow, it's like jolts you.
It's interesting too, because when I had Chris DeRosa on, and he was making a point about the TLC shows, we were 90 Day specifically at that time versus Housewives. And you guys know Chris DeRosa is our friend, and he's a Housewives producer. And he was saying like the difference between like a TLC show is like in 1 hour, you might see 3 different setups.
Right.
On a Housewives show, you'll see 25. Like they are at this house, at that house, at this party, at that party. This one's at the store. This one's at the gym, and they're in the car and they're driving. It's the pace is so slow. Yeah.
And it's hard to calibrate sometimes. You're like,
yeah. Well, people will be like, oh, it's boring. I go, are you kidding me? This is the best show on television. It's so fascinating every person's journey is so fascinating to me. And it's what we say about the Plaths all the time. What I've always said about the Plaths is everything with them is good, clean fun. They're just rolling a tire in the yard. They're just singing hymnals at the dinner table.
I
And
feel like that
you
it
know,
resonates more with you from the South.
yeah, it's
Like,
annoying
it's
because it's,
a slower paced living, and I feel like the South people in the South really treasure time with one another and that slow
mm,
pace, like living out your life and just, like, enjoying every moment. Where I'm from, where it's just so intense and fast paced,
yeah.
that I think that that's why you have a special appreciation for this show.
Oh, you're probably right because I'm completely obsessed with it.
I
I
think
just was,
it reminds you in some ways of things about your own life. Obviously, your family's totally different, but just that I find that shows that are really fast and people are kind of like ping pong going back and forth reminds me more of where I grew up.
hmm
So I think there's a huge population of people who enjoy this show because it's just, I think it's like almost like traditional American kind of sensibility,
yeah.
like your family is your priority, is the center point, and
Yeah.
so much of who you are is based on all the interactions, which isn't dissimilar to the other parts of the country. I'm just saying that I think at the slow pace of the South, um, it allows an opportunity for you to have almost like a firmer, um, viewpoint of the world through the lens of your own family.
Yeah.
Where in the Northeast, there's so many distractions that I don't think you can really um, I don't know. I guess what I'm just trying to say is I feel like people in the South really enjoy life in a different way than people in the Northeast do.
Well, what you're talking about, the slow pace, but you're talking about, and we all, this is what I always say about Plathville. It's just good, clean fun. But when I was just talking to Olivia this week and I was telling her about something about forbidden love and the Amish guy, all of a sudden, of course, is addicted to porn because he's never even seen a woman
Yeah.
before. So we're talking about that. And she goes, "Oh my God, are they allowed to talk about that on TLC?" I go, "Yes, girl." And she goes, "Well, I gotta step it up to PG-13." I said, "Yeah, you do." But I think what it is about the South too is it
It's the
seems like good, clean
manners.
fun and the manners and good, clean fun. But really what we're seeing in the Plath family is what it really is. Every person is so complex and there's so much trauma coming from somewhere that is really
Yeah.
fucking everybody up, but you
But you
don't
don't
maybe
it's not as so I guess what I'm trying to say too is like you're confronted by all of those complexities, in a more abrupt way in the
mm,
Northeast, where
right,
in the
right.
South, there are all these complexities, but everyone's so much more polite.
Well, you gotta keep your stories to yourself. You don't
Yeah,
need to share your business with everybody, you know?
right. Yeah.
Um, okay, I'm just trying to see. I've got a dog behind me on the floor here. Do you want to sit with me? No? Okay. So we get a scene with the Plath men, the men of the Plath. There's the other dog, Kate. There's the little one. Who's here. Hi, girl. They are going to the gym. They all go to the gym in tank tops. So it's Barry, Ethan, Micah, and Isaac. So it's this dad and his three boys, and they go to the gym and they pump it up and they make a lot of like "I'm going to pump you up" jokes.
Mhm.
And they're all ripped, but I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need to see Barry Plath in a tank top ever again. Like I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good. Micah, I'm okay with. And Ethan is like buff,
Yeah.
but he has poured all his anger into the gym. Um,
He seems so enraged, and it's just boiling. Like, there's some scenes where they really close in on his face, and you
yeah,
can just see him clenching every muscle in his face.
yeah. He's real, real, real angry.
But he's also afraid to release any bit of it.
Okay, well then you're going to be interested when I tell you. Kate did not have a chance to watch the whole episode. You'll be interested to hear what I'm going to tell you at the end. So, we see some clips with Ethan and Kim, flashbacks of them talking, and because they're gonna the sorry, Ethan and Mariah and Micah are going to go out to see Kim on this air quote houseboat to see his sisters. He hasn't seen them in forever. So we're getting a lot of flashbacks between Ethan and Kim's relationship, like the time they sat down and Ethan said, Mom, we were always taught that you find somebody like at 19, 20 and you marry them and you're with them forever. And we were never taught there was another way. We were never taught we should date, that we should meet other people. And she's like,
Mhm.
and he's like, and that messed us all up. We see some scenes of this, which I really like seeing. And then we hear her say on this episode, which I will get to at the end, that I talked to Olivia about. She says, things were so tense with me and Ethan because of that credit card story that Olivia told.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's not a story. It is a truth of what happened. Ethan has
Mhm.
agreed that 100% this is what happened. It's not a
Yeah.
story that Olivia told. So she's had a chance to, she won't dispute it because it is what happened. So Ethan is very happy to see his little sisters. Hasn't seen them in 2 years. He's very happy to see them. He hugs his mom. She's super happy that he hugged her proactively, and she's very happy about that. And he says, now that he's not with Olivia anymore, he could navigate his relationships as he sees fit, and he wishes he wouldn't have let things get under his skin. So he's not necessarily saying like he was wrong, to be mad at his mom or that Olivia did it.
Mhm.
He's just saying like he shouldn't have let some things get, like he shouldn't have just let it fester under his skin so much that he got so mad all the time. Now, Ethan says, Kim has made a lot of big changes in the last 3 years. And I hope she's happy basically. And here's what you'll think is interesting, Kate. So Mariah and
Okay.
Ethan are doing a talking head together, like by the boat. And Mariah says, what I really discovered about mom is she really never gets her feelings hurt. And Ethan stops her. Ethan stops her and says, that's because she doesn't really feel much herself.
Yeah,
She
that makes
doesn't
sense to
she
me, of
doesn't let
course.
herself have feelings.
Yeah.
And he goes, and I know because I'm the same. I don't allow myself to have feelings either. I don't feel anything. It's pretty introspective, wouldn't you say?
It's just terribly sad.
It's
But
so sad.
I feel like Kim began doing that, I suspect, out of necessity, coping, like compartmentalizing,
Mhm.
and I think he does it because he was taught that that's the way that you move through life,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I think a
Mhm.
lot of parents do that. They have their own, traumas and coping mechanisms, and then children learn that that's the way you deal with, anything that's of struggle in life. It's heartbreaking.
Right. I mean, if that's what you've seen as the way that you act as an adult, then when you become an adult, that's how you act,
Mhm.
you know? But I think it was introspective for him to say she doesn't really let herself feel much, and I'm the same. I don't let myself feel much. He says to the producer, he says, I know in the future I'm going to have to be vulnerable, and it's really hard for me, but I have to learn to nip things in the bud before they get out of control. So he
Yeah.
hasn't had any therapy. He just maybe is learning this as an adult. I don't know.
Yes, what was the last thing you just said? That was so interesting.
Nip things in the
He
bud before they get out of control. He
Yeah,
can't,
I mean,
he has to let himself be vulnerable.
and that was also probably a necessity of childhood with all these other siblings. His parent may have said, at some point when he tried to express any emotion, you know, "Be mindful, I've got all these other kids to take care of, I don't
Mhm.
have time to listen to your problems," and then he
Yeah.
just, created a situation where he just kept stifling it all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because uh, he's the oldest boy. And so that's also a huge role in the family to be the oldest
Mm.
boy. Um, he is actually the oldest child completely. Ethan was born in 1998. He's 25 now. The next one was Hosanna, and she was about a year and a half later. So
And
now,
firstborn children, particularly in bigger families, and I only have half the size of theirs, but they take on so much responsibility,
yeah,
and in my case, like, I try not to do that as much as I can, but it's just a byproduct of, like, they are such caretakers. They're children that are trying to grow up and learn life lessons while also having these extraordinary responsibilities, and it's heartbreaking because sometimes things get lost in the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they were all like we've seen on like the Duggars and stuff like,
Mhm.
I'm giving you this kid to take care of, right? So this one's yours. Like, you know what I
For
mean?
their family, for sure, but, like,
Yeah.
even my own house, I have to, run errands, and Mia's making dinner for them, and there have been times where she's put them to bed just because it's just easier to have a family member take care of it, instead of, like, hiring somebody outside.
Yeah,
It's tough,
absolutely.
but it's a kind of the functioning of a larger family. Again,
Mhm.
I have half the size that they do, so I'm only trying to imagine how they were able to do that with limited resources, not just resources in terms of, like, extra manpower to help out, but also just without much technology, without all of those other things. It's, like, really like watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie, like The Village.
It is, and, when I talked to Olivia, I was asking her about that house because
Mhm.
when Kim said on your podcast that they moved in to help the mom and the stepdad, that house is only 3 bedrooms. So Kim and Barry moved into the parents' room. The boys got their own room. The 3 boys had their own room, and then the 6 girls had a room, and that's why they had bunk beds in the hall because there wasn't enough for 6 girls in that upstairs room, which was a
That's just
loft.
awful.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a loft. It's an open space. 6 girls in an open space
Just
loft.
like the Duggars too, they had the same situation, and that's when, their brother would come up and there are, no walls. He's just sort of going root bed to bed.
Stop it. So awful.
Mhm.
So now when they're on the boat, Kim is saying to Ethan, now he hasn't seen his mom or spoken to her in 2 years. He hasn't seen his 3 sisters in 2 years. Okay? He hasn't seen those little kids.
That's
And
just so heartbreaking.
and so he's there. Like he's there. I'm doing it. I'm dying to see my sisters. He may have actually I take that back. He may have seen his little sisters once, but he has not seen Kim at all. And so he's actually trying to like make some inroads here. And she says, well, Ken lives right down the road. We could go over to Ken's house and hang out and like see him and play pool. And he's like, No, no. I
Mhm.
mean, he's like, maybe another time, but he's like, literally, I haven't seen you guys in 2 years and you want to take me to your fucking boyfriend's house? Like, no.
Yeah, she's so consumed with herself. I mean, she truly is a narcissist. That's the term's often overused, but yes, she's
Everything is about her and
yeah.
what now this is
Mhm.
okay for me. So I don't care that I raised you guys this way for 15 years. Now the rules have changed because it's changed for me. On that boat, they keep showing this shot of her Captain Kim hat next to this huge bottle of wine. But
Mm.
meanwhile, Olivia was basically kicked out of the family because she and Ethan one time had a beer at a restaurant in front of the children. They're 22 years old at the time. And they had a beer at the restaurant. Like they sat down at a family dinner and ordered a beer. And after that, it was like, nope, Olivia's the devil. So even though Ethan's the one that ordered the beers. So,
Well, she represents a lack of control for Kim.
mhm.
That's why she's so enraged by her, is that was the first person or element that disallowed her from having total control over her children's lives and viewpoints too.
Yeah. So we get to this last scene at the house. So it's Barry and the sons, and then Mariah and Lydia are there. And my God, the singing from Lydia and Mariah, I'm sorry, you can come at me all you want, but they are horrible singers. They cannot carry a tune. They are flat. I am not, I don't know anything about music and I can't carry a tune, but I can tell you that when you hear Ethan sing, he sounds like kind of Johnny Cash.
I mean, are we surprised?
He can really sing.
Yeah.
He can really actually sing and it's pleasant. When
Well, I
Lydia
feel like
and
that's the only place that he derives any like release of emotions, right?
this week, Kate, at the end of this episode, when you watch it, he sings a song that he wrote,
Mm.
and it really is very Johnny Cash, and it is a sad song, and he sings it for the family, and I'm like, and then he goes, "Oh, why don't we sing one of the songs we used to sing in our family band?" And they sing, "The sunny side of life, keep on the sunny side," whatever. And he's singing it, and you can hear his voice is so clear and perfect. And these girls are like, "Keep on the sunny side."
Oh god, yeah, because
And
what are the chances that an entire family would have, like, Michael Bublé voices? Slim to nil.
but Mariah and Lydia are both trying to create a singing career. And neither
Yeah.
one of them can sing. It is literally as if I would be like, "Hi, oh my God." That's what it
Well,
sounds like.
because they
It's
weren't really given
horrible.
an education, that's the only thing that they seemed like they were quasi good at, because it netted them in their own minds this YouTube show that was a sensation, which netted them an opportunity to be TV stars. That's their only value they think that they have. Well, we're singers. That's our skill set.
But the two that are trying to make a career of it are horrible.
Yeah,
So,
bad
next
news.
week next week we see Mariah says she knows that she handled things wrong with Olivia, and she thinks that she needs to apologize to Olivia, which is wonderful. Um, Kim on the boat. So Micah's on the boat trying to help her with some things. He's like, "Do you can you turn on the blowers?" She was like, "What's that?" He's like, he was like, "Okay, mom, I'm on the port side." She was like, "Where's that? Left or right?" And he's like, "Does the boat have a key?" And she goes, "I don't know."
What? Isn't what?
She doesn't know if it even has a key.
Okay.
So Olivia goes to meet Mariah, and that's where we end it. Now I really do want to talk to you about these inconsistency in Kim's interview with you. Now,
Okay.
I would like for you to go ahead and pitch your case as to why you wanted to interview Kim Plath, even though I told you no, and any other TLC podcaster would have told you no. Tell me what your reasons were, because they
Well,
were pure in spirit.
I mean, I have done this job for a very long time.
That's right.
8 years, 1,000 episodes. And I do feel
Mhm.
like I'm somebody who has I feel like the older I get, the more I realize that I'm probably a little bit witchy. Like I've got great intuition, but I feel like I can really get someone to open up, but I also kind of have a sense of like what might be lurking. So there's that.
Uh-huh.
For me, always watching this show, I kept thinking there has got to be a reason for her need for control. The way that she disallows herself to really show any emotion, and just lurking issues between herself and her husband, her oldest son Ethan, and then also Olivia, of course. There has to be some reason. So over time I thought maybe that there was some sort of traumatic experience which led her into the arms of Barry, who reminds me of a serial killer.
Mhm.
And then would make her want to have all of these children, to live sort seemingly off the grid, to control every aspect of their lives to the point where she doesn't want them to have much socialization. She needs to homeschool them. There's some traumatic experience that preceded them marrying, and then after having all of these children in quick succession, maybe there was a postpartum issue that was never taken care of or discussed.
Mhm.
And absolutely after the death of her son, which she essentially backed over her child, and then had said on the show that she had not received therapy. So I thought maybe if I talk to her, I can get a little bit more of a window, because I feel like the more information the viewers have, the more better they can understand not just her, but the relationships that she has with all of her children. And ultimately, as we just noted, we can understand the viewpoint, the lens through which all of these children look at through life, because of the relationship with their parents and the way their parents parented them. So that was what I was going into. That maybe because I have these things and I've talked to people for so long, I might be able to do it. You said I was out of my mind.
I
You
did.
were like, what is the point? But I always kind of come from a place that even when I took the most batshit crazy people, if I spend more time listening, maybe I'll get some sort of window.
And all of that is admirable. But the first thing that she didn't tell the truth about was, and I asked Olivia about all this on the interview, she said to you, "My mom was an amazing single mother. It was so fantastic." On the show, she has flat out said her mother was an alcoholic and left her to her own devices. And that her mother was an alcoholic, and that's why
Yeah,
she
and I
was
gave her
so
the
against
space to
drinking.
answer that. I kind of opened that up, like, what was your life growing up? And she said, oh, we lived in a houseboat, and then, I circled back a relationship with my dad. I would also like to caveat that, and I've said that this in the beginning of my interview. When you're given an interview with talent, you're mindful of two things. One, there's someone else listening on the line, which is a little bit of a cock block.
Mm.
it's kind of like you're making out with somebody and someone's sitting in the corner of the room. Like, you want to have this intimate conversation, and it's really frustrating when someone's listening in. And number
Uh-huh.
two, I'm mindful that the person who's listening in has got the stopwatch and is
Yep.
like, the clock is ticking down.
Yeah.
So we start the interview and it takes her like 3.5 to 4 minutes just to get the sound right.
Yeah.
So now I've already lost that. So I need in that 26 minutes, 26, even less than that, to start an interview process in which I can establish a level of intimacy in which she can open up that way, while also asking the hard-hitting questions that everyone expects me to ask. So it's like a big amount of things that are going through your head. And then she paused a lot
Yep.
and she took her time. And I'm like, I am not going to get anything in this time slot. So I wish that people kind of would know that in terms of like the restraints that we are given as interviewers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very rarely do I get any kind of interview where they don't say she will give you exactly 34 minutes or whatever. With
Yeah.
my thing with Olivia, I said, I would like an hour. And she said, well, she has exactly this 50 minutes. I said, okay, well, let's log in at 5:20. If she has to be done at 6:20, I want to log in at 5:20. So I have 5 or 6 minutes to say, hey, great to see you. Here's how the interview is going to go. Because it's also so awkward if they only give you exactly 30 minutes and then you don't even get that 5 minutes beforehand where you be like, here's what we're going to talk about. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much. And then take the TLC person, off the line so they can't talk. They can just hear, it's a lot of that. And then now you've clicked it down to you had 40 minutes, now you got 32, or, it is hard.
Mhm.
It is. So that was the first thing that she didn't listen. I don't know what the truth is. What I'm saying is it's completely contradictory of what she has said on the show about her mother being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
To you, she said, my mom was amazing. She was a single mom, raised me on a houseboat. Okay.
Mhm.
That's not what she said on the show. Olivia agreed with me. She also said to you, the reason they didn't send their kids to traditional school was she just thought there was more to it and the kids should learn about life and traveling. These kids are not well traveled. We saw on the show when Mariah wanted to go with Olivia on a work trip to help her. She had never been anywhere in her life other than where they went with their family. And Barry flat out told her, when you go to San Francisco, you have to watch out for the gay people. Like, there are gay people there. They'll try to like snatch you off the street.
Right. Okay.
She also said, and I wrote this down exactly from your interview, it was tough because I didn't have a good relationship with Olivia, but I really tried. Olivia and Kim, from when Olivia met the family at age 16, she said Kim Plath called her almost every single day. She went to see them every month or so because she was courting with Ethan. She set up their family website. She was in charge of that music video. She helped her when people would reach out on social media, all this. Olivia said, I talked to Kim more than I talked to Ethan when I was courting with Ethan.
Eh.
So for her to say, I didn't have a good relationship with Olivia, they didn't have a good relationship once she and Ethan got married. And
Mhm.
Olivia was like, now we're married. We got to look at our finances. And that's when the trouble started because she
Got it. Yeah.
realized
Yeah.
Kim was using that credit card
Control.
control. You guys know I'm always telling you about Tropical Smoothie Cafe. I love it. There's one right down the street. We go constantly. They've got these new summer mocktails, and I really, really love those. I love the mango berry Cosmo. I add some coconut to that. Oh, it's so good. But I want to tell you about some other stuff they have. They have a turkey bacon ranch sandwich that is delicious. For a kid's meal, they have like a turkey cheddar wrap. You can get some baked lays and a little cookie. My favorite on the kids menu is the little limeberry. That's if you just want a little smoothie. You don't want the whole thing. You guys, they have the acai bowls. They also have delicious breakfast. They have a Southwest wrap. They have an all-American breakfast wrap. And, for smoothies, they have those green smoothies. So if you're into that, they have that. My son's favorite smoothie is the kiwi quencher. You guys, I'm doing this off the top of my head because we order there so much. Like I said, the little limeberry I like, but I do love these new mocktails. The mocktails are only for a limited time. They have a mojito. And like I said, they have the berry Cosmo. That's my favorite. And again, Don't sleep on the breakfast. Get it? Don't sleep on the breakfast. Really, the breakfast wraps are delish as well. So you guys, go to Tropical Smoothie. Try out all these things. You don't just have to try the mocktails. You don't just have to try the bowls or the wraps. Try everything. Go 3-4 times a week. Find out what you like. See what your main order always is. We're again going with that Berry Cosmo mocktail because it's a limited time. Again, the little lime berry, the kiwi quencher, the acai bowls, the breakfast. You guys, all of it. Tropical Smoothie. You're on Tropic Time now. Another thing she said was the kids did have friends and go places, and they went to basketball games and they traveled and they did things. And Olivia said her family, and the Plath family were very similar, exact same number of kids, blah, blah, blah. The difference is, you'll think it's interesting, Kate, that in Olivia's family, the boys did go to college and the parents paid for the boys to go to college, but the
Like my
girls were
mom's family.
but the girls were not encouraged not to go to college.
That's like my mom. My
Yeah.
mom, meanwhile, was the smartest one who almost got perfect SATs, but the brothers get all college paid for.
They all got the college paid for them. So Olivia said that wasn't true. The only time they traveled was when they were with that family band, and that was only they started that family band after they met Olivia's family. So when Olivia was 16,
okay.
Olivia's family had a family band. So the
competition.
The Plaths started their family band after Olivia's. That's how they met them at one of these conferences, an IBLP conference. And as far as her telling you they were not religious or in any one
members
belief,
of Quiverful,
not in Quiverful, Olivia said that is true because her family was similar. They did not subscribe exactly to the IBLP and exactly to the Quiverful moment. They picked what they wanted out of it and left the rest because her family was very similar and they did not want to be controlled by one specific religion, but they did take a lot of the Quiverful and IBLP beliefs.
Got it. Okay.
Then I asked her about Kim telling you they were never interested in a show, but her production team reached out to them after seeing their music video. And she said at that point, their musical group was over because Olivia was in the picture, is what she said. Now, meanwhile, Olivia had helped them set up their family band and everything else. And then she kind of said as a sidebar, also Hosanna had gotten married. So we didn't have two of our members anymore. So I asked Olivia, do you think Kim reached out for this deal? And she said her understanding was, and she couldn't speak to it clearly, but she said, my understanding was that once the music video was out there and people saw it, then production companies did come around, but Kim was the one involved in all those business dealings.
Right.
It wasn't like she and Barry sat around and prayed about it. She was like, yeah get me on the phone with a lawyer, you know? So
interesting.
I have here that Kate asked Kim, are you a different person now? And how do you feel watching yourself back? And she said
she doesn't watch herself. Yeah.
Never watched it. And Olivia said, that's interesting. I can't imagine that she never watched it. But she was like, maybe she didn't. And I said she wasn't able to say to Kate why she thinks she's changed in these last few years. Like, what was the spark that made her make this huge change? And Olivia says, because she wanted to. And so now that she wants to, now that's what everybody else has to do. And I said, right. So I think that is the definition of narcissism, right? It's like, so for 20 years, everybody has to follow this rule.
Yeah.
From Hosanna and Ethan, everybody has to follow this rule for 20 years. And then now think about Lydia, who's very, very in it. Lydia now is 19 years old, has followed this her whole life. She's studied to be a trad wife her whole life.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden she can like go on a mission and like date boys and like have Instagram. And so can the 14-year-old.
It's just a shock to your core. You're like your self-identity crisis, right?
It's like the Amish guy on Forbidden Love.
It's precisely like Amish.
What did you think was going to happen if this guy is 25 years old, never even knew what sex was, other than he knew sometimes people did it with cows?
Right. By the way, as a side note, if you go to the airport in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is not too far from Amish country, you can buy a collection of romance novels that have an Amish theme. I'm like, who would buy this?
You should buy it. You should. You should buy it, and then we'll do a dramatic reading.
It's like growing up. I mean, I grew up not far from Amish country, and then I went to boarding school, which was closer. And yeah, I mean, the irony is the big city in terms of Amish country is Intercourse, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, yeah. I
Like
love
of
some of
all the
those.
names,
There's another one in Pennsylvania, right, called Blue Balls?
blue
Is it?
balls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Blue
they make
Balls.
great ice cream. Yeah.
I would imagine they do. Um, so let's see. And then I told Olivia too how she couldn't quite remember the ages of her kids, and she laughed. She laughed when you
Yeah, no
said,
clue.
like,
She could not remember.
but when you said, Kate, you go, yeah, like I also have a lot of kids. And so, gosh, when you have a lot of kids in that short span of time, I imagine you had like how many kids and how many years? That's to me, as a person, if you had 9 kids, that would roll off the tongue like, oh my God, I had 9 kids
Yeah,
in
like
12
for me,
years.
I have between 15 and 6.
Or you
Now,
would be like,
sometimes I forget their names and I have to go, "Wait, who are you again?" Like, I'm not gonna deny that, but
Kate,
the
but Kate,
the easiest question that I can answer is the span of time. That's like a no-brainer easy.
but you could say I had 5 kids in 7 years. I mean, you could, or what, 5 kids in 8 years. You could say that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
She cannot say that. She literally, and
Again,
I felt that
I'm
she
like,
laughed at you
how
like it was a stupid question.
there I mean, oh, there has to be some residual stuff going on with all those pregnancies, probably didn't have much postnatal care.
She had all the babies
She's Yeah, I
at
mean, there's
home.
gotta be stuff. Listen, she clearly has some stuff going on, but in addition to that, I don't think we can discount that there and I say that so you understand the level of heartbreak even deeper, is that the children were raised in a home with an unpredictable parent
Yeah,
who was struggling in their own mental space, and they were probably terrified, like, walking on eggshells around her, and their entire view of the world was secured by somebody who was absolutely struggling, no
that's a
question
really
about it.
great point to think about because Barry went to work and she was at home with the kids every day on the
Mhm.
farm. And you have to, and what we saw was Lydia did everything. She was like Cinderella.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point to think like
Well, I grew up
they,
with a stepfather who was a narcissist, truly a narcissist,
yeah.
and the whole home operated around his needs. Like, what he wanted to eat for dinner, we would eat for dinner. We couldn't get up until he finished eating. If he
Mm,
was in a room, we needed to scatter. If he wanted to go to upstairs, we'd scatter downstairs. It's like such a similar element. And when you're I can't say this enough, when you're living in a home with someone who requires you to be walking on eggshells, it puts you in a place of absolute paranoia all the time.
hmm Yeah, I can think that's right. And I think it's interesting too that goes into my next point, which is she said to you regarding the death of the child that she said to you, I went to counseling and I journaled and I took walks. But and
Mm,
I asked Olivia about this, and she said that's not at all what she said on the show. And,
yeah.
that's not at all how we always heard it. Olivia said she did not know they had a brother that died until after she and Ethan were engaged. They were
Yeah.
together for like 3 years. And
Yeah.
then no one ever mentioned this brother that died. After they were engaged, Ethan took her to the cemetery and she was like, "What are we looking at here?" Like she had no idea. And she was very, very close with Kim, and Kim had never mentioned it. And none of those kids, and she was very close with Mariah, had ever mentioned to her that they had a brother that died because she said her understanding of the situation was it was not to be discussed, it was not to be mentioned, and that she
Mhm.
did stay in the bed for a long time and no, she never went to any kind of therapy. She said perhaps she sought out some counseling with some of their
Like
religious
a
friends.
religious thing, right,
Yeah,
which
she
is
said,
not
yeah,
not the best choice.
not for that situation.
Yeah, that's like a significant, grief loss. I mean, there's a lot to process. I don't think that's sort of like just one part of it.
But
You need
did you
all
see
of the
what she
elements
said last
addressed.
week? What Olivia said last week about when she and Lydia Grace went home for their brother's funeral and how people in her family felt such solace because they felt, well, he's gone to heaven and that's it and everything's fine. Where she and Lydia
Mhm.
Grace were processing the loss and she said, and I can see why people would do that. I can
Yeah.
see how that would make you feel better. And she said, and I wish I had that, but for me, I'm trying to figure out
Well, I
what
think
happened. Where
the
is
hard
he?
part of just relying on your faith to get you through is that faith is, to me, your faith is the most intimate, sacred thing about oneself.
Yeah.
And if you have accidentally, killed your child, you you're in a crisis of faith, but you're
Mhm.
also having to grieve the loss, which is profound, while also parent all those children.
And also feel
So,
the guilt because the death was your fault.
yeah, to work through that. So your crisis of faith is sometimes like the last element that you can work on. There's like an immediate need for the other things to be addressed before you can even get into your faith.
So you can, like, get to yourself to feel bad about. I don't know.
Yeah.
It the whole what I really appreciate when you and I talked is that you were like, "I really want to understand what the death of that child did to their whole family and what it did to her and how maybe it really, really shaped, the rest of it," and you really wanted to get into, like, what happened with her alcoholic mother that shaped her to want to
I
close
don't
her
know
kids
how
off from
one
the
couldn't
world.
have empathy for her if but now the one thing I have concern over now is that I don't know what's true and what is not.
Right.
Like, I grew up with a stepfather who literally lied about being a war hero, and we found out he didn't even serve. So when you are raised with somebody and you have to, there's certain rules of the house. There are these, like in my house, we had to praise him all the time. Like, it's so great how you served our country. And then when you
Ah,
find out that it wasn't even true, you feel
yeah,
such betrayal.
yeah.
So in their home, there are certain rules that everyone's following because there are things that they know to be true about their mom, her life story, where they're like, well, don't address that because that's an issue for her, and like, but I don't even know how much of it is actually true.
I think that what she said originally was she grew up with an alcoholic mother, and that really, I think she was kind of like she has said in college, she sort of sowed her oats and was kind of wild, and then that sort of maybe drove her and Barry together. Olivia said she and Barry together decided to sort of lead this sheltered life with their kids and
I almost
stuff.
wonder if she was assaulted and she couldn't go to her mother for counsel because her mother was obviously not in a place where she knew what was going on in her own life, let alone her child. She did not feel protected by her mother.
Right.
And that was why she went over the top with her husband, with like in her own mind, like, I will protect my child in a way that I was not protected.
Sorry about the dogs. They just started barking because somebody walked in the house. Yes, I completely agree with that, Kate. And I think that that's why I'm telling you, that is why I think this is the best show on television because we've been talking for 40 minutes. We touched
Yeah.
on an episode, but we're literally talking about an interview you did and then an interview I did.
Well,
And
I think that all of us, we're the same reason we watch true crime docs is that it's just trying to figure out the puzzle pieces.
it's the story of it that kind of like when you're talking about the Southerner and the slowness of it, it's always a Southern Gothic. It's always
Mhm.
a story. And I'll tell you, and I won't give too much information, but I was just this weekend. As you know, I went to a friend of mine. Her husband passed away, and I went to the funeral. And she's telling me this. Her husband passed away suddenly. She was out of town, so she did not. She wasn't there. So she says, so I went to the morgue to identify the body because I had to see him. I didn't have to go identify the body. My dad could have done it, but I went to do it because I wanted to see him. Because literally, like, I came
Oh,
home and
wow.
I came home and he had disappeared, you know?
Yikes.
So she said, I just
Mhm.
wanted to go because we're like, God, was that hard? And she said, listen. And I said, so the joke is, because where we're from in Jackson, Mississippi, I was like, where is the morgue in Jackson, Mississippi? Because the downtown is rough. And she
Mhm.
said, oh my gosh, okay, you go off on High Street and you get off, and then, like, there's like that Taco Bell, and then there's Boots and More. You just turn in between the Taco Bell and the Boots and More. And I go, okay. And I laughed and I said, if that's not the most Southern thing I've ever heard in my life, is to
Yeah.
get to the morgue, you're going to take a right by the Boots and More to
Yeah.
go to the morgue to see your,
Talk about the fact that there people are getting Taco Bell beside a morgue for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I said, that's the most Southern thing. I said, these are the kind of stories that the South is what we have. Everything is
Well,
so Southern Gothic, you
it was
know?
pretty Southern the way that her response, like, "Well, how was it seeing your deceased husband?" Like, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." Like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, and she said her dad was like, "Listen, if he looks all right, I'm gonna take a picture." And
I
I
mean,
go,
you can't make it up.
I said, "Do people go in there and just take pictures of dead people?" She
Mhm.
goes, "I don't know. We didn't take a picture," you know?
When by the
But
way, when my uncle died, my sister took a selfie with my 2 cousins and my aunt, and I was really close to my uncle, and she sent it to me because I couldn't fly because I was pregnant and it was bad weather, and I went, "Hey, idiot, you know he's in the back." Like, the coffin was in the back of the picture, he was laying in the coffin, and they took a selfie.
with like a was it like an open casket behind
Yeah,
him?
open
Yeah.
casket,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm. I mean, when I tell you, but I think that's probably another reason why this specific show speaks to me so much because of the Southern stories are always so layered. Whatever you think
Yeah.
this family is, it's just you just don't know anything. My friend Larison Campbell had a great podcast out called Devil in the Ditch, and it was about her grandmother was murdered in Greenville,
Oh,
Mississippi, and they really the whole town still to this day, 25 years later, thinks that the nephew did it, which is her cousin.
eh.
And it was a whole podcast about it. The Devil in the Ditch. And it was like a game they played when they were little. But she was
Boy.
it's great because it's just like I'm Larison, I live in New York, I work for this magazine, whatever, and I just thought I'm gonna investigate my own. And she was like trying to get
Mhm.
documents from the sheriff and all this, and she would go like, "Well, Larison, we're not gonna give it to you." She's
Wow.
like, "What? I'm with a reputable court, I've got like my press badge." Like, "Yeah, we're not gonna let you see those." I mean, it's a great
Wow.
podcast, but it is such a great
Wow.
representation of the South and how we present one thing and then the story is something completely
New
different
different.
underneath.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's fascinating. So
Mm.
that's why I think I'm so fascinated with the Plaths. But everybody, you definitely need to go.
I'm
Last
fascinated
week is
too because as my mom said, because she was visiting last week and I made her watch an episode, I said, "Isn't it wild to you how much I could be a member of that family?" Like I looks and she goes, "Genetics are a weird thing. They look like my cousins."
no, 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 no. You could plop your 5 children on the Plath family farm and nobody would notice. They'd be like, "There's 5 more of them." They wouldn't
But my
know.
kids have a little bit of Portuguese, skin tone to them, like, they can all get tans, like, I'm
Okay.
straight up pale town like the Plaths.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you are. But your kids with their little blonde hair, you could stick
yeah,
them all on that farm and nobody would notice.
no.
They would be like, "Go out and milk the cows, roll the tires, you'd go get bale the hay."
Ethan and Micah in particular look so much like my boy cousins.
Yeah, well, that's nice for them. They're good looking. You guys, last week, Kate had out her episode. She had an interview with Flava Flav and Kim Plath on the
The
same
same episode.
episode.
Can you believe it?
So,
You know, she might actually be good, Kim Plath, for an upcoming Surreal Life. I don't know, like 5 years from now, after the show goes off the air. She might be good. And they
no.
need to stick her with some because remember they had Tammy Faye Baker and Ron Jeremy in one season and they became like really great friends. I think that like Kim Plath with like a rap star or something like improbable, 2 totally different worlds. That would be good.
Well, I'll just put this way. I don't think Kim Plath is going to ever agree to be in a house with a rapper. If you ever want to check
She's
out,
gonna need the money and she will do it. You come on.
well, if you ever want to check out her or Ken's Facebook posts,
Oh, are
it's
they like wackadoos?
pretty racist. Pretty
Wow. Well,
racist.
they're
Don't say
they're
it's because 'cause they're
they
Southern, because 'cause I'm
No,
Southern.
they're living in a space, a mental space where they're so afraid of being around anyone that is not exactly like them. Like there's
Right.
just like a fear.
Yeah.
And I think there
Mhm.
are a lot of people in this country that operate that way where it's so stupid because the more you meet different kinds of people, it really expands your worldview. I feel like it gives you such freedom.
I did talk a little bit at the end of my interview with Olivia about that because she's so well traveled. And she said,
Yeah.
you when she traveled with Ethan, it was one thing she had to plan everything. But now that she just sort of goes on her own, like, hey, I've never been to Barcelona. I've got 5 days. I'm going to do it. And I
Mhm.
said, yeah, I think as a young person, that's just like total freedom. If you, especially if you are so well traveled that you just know how to do it. And we were
Yeah.
talking about that. And I said, I am glad that Ethan has been out and seen the world. And I'm glad that Mariah, has moved to other cities and did travel a little bit. And she said that she and Ethan did go on several trips with Micah and Mariah, other countries and stuff. And she said, so they are well traveled now. And Micah, of course, lived in LA and had friends that were gay, straight, all that. So I said, so at
Yeah,
least
I
I
don't think
feel
that it seems like the older kids, they kinda get it, except well, not Ethan, but
not
the
Ethan,
other ones.
not
Ethan,
Hosanna.
d their relationship always felt like she was mothering him.
Yeah.
She is
It's hard. It's
she's,
hard.
like, cool and you could see her being sensual, and he's so contained and just his worldview is so limited, and intellectually, he doesn't seem that very curious. They just seem just totally not a good match to me.
And I think she tried to be like, "Hey, we're gonna go live in France for 2 months. We're gonna do,"
Yeah,
you
but
know what
that
I
was
mean?
she was like it's almost patronizing the way she would end up and no fault of her own, it's just like the part of the process, but when you were with somebody who has such a limited curiosity and I don't know, like capacity, and you want so much of the world at like in your fingertips, like you tend to talk down to somebody.
I think that she really thought if we do all this traveling and stuff, it will open his mind and he will see that
But
it's
she's not his
okay.
teacher. She's not a
Right.
teacher.
Right, and I
Yeah.
think that that's amazing that now
I just want
she's
her to meet someone and have like great sex.
I think she's doing that.
Good for her. That's what she
Yeah.
did. That's what she needs. Great
Yeah,
sex.
she's got a new, boyfriend. She said we will meet him at the end of the season, but she's not gonna put him on social media and stuff. And she did put on
Yeah.
social media the other day, like, something, and then she posted the next day. She was like, "Okay, everybody comment like they saw that I had, like, a hickey. Let's make hickeys acceptable. Who cares? I'm 25,
Sure. Yeah.
Why
Oh,
not?"
20. Yeah. Girl, live it.
That's what I said. "Go, girl."
Live it. Yeah.
I agree.
'Cause, like,
I
now that
agree.
she's gone out into the world and seen TikTok, she must be like, "Well, I'm, like, not the whore that they made me out to be."
Oh my god, of
Yeah.
course.
It's
Yeah.
like,
She's like, "Look at me
25,
getting."
live your life.
That's what I told her. I did say at the end, I go, "You're so young. You're
I know, but how do you
so
explain that to
young."
somebody, you know? My
She's
sister always says, "How do you teach perspective to someone without perspective?" So, you know?
And I think a great phrase you used here that made me sort of think about, like, Ethan was like limited curiosity, and also
Mhm.
with Kim and her new boyfriend Ken, I think that eh, not wanting to go outside of your bubble, and that, you know what, and like I've said on the show, I don't agree with anything. I mean, Ethan flat out told Olivia, and she said this on my podcast, flat out told Olivia, if our children are gay, I would disown them, and you have to too. And she said,
Oh,
"So
yeah,
I'm
they
never gonna
yeah.
do that. Yeah, I'm never going to do that, so our marriage would never work,"
He's
you
so
know?
terrified because of the ding dong parents that live in this very small box. Their
Yeah,
limited viewpoint. They feel like that provides them some sort of freedom, when in fact freedom is the exploration of other things. So yeah, it's backwards.
it's backwards. Kate, I've loved talking to you. I'm glad we got to do a point counterpoint on the Plaths, and,
I've got
I
a
just
point counterpoint with Carlos King out today too about Real Housewives of New Jersey and OC, and I feel like the same thing.
yeah,
Like
I think
you
that
can
Carlos has he
disagree.
has a lot of wrong takes, in my opinion.
He does. We disagree on almost everything, but it's like a calm discussion in a world where everyone wants to scream at one another.
Yeah, well, that's listen, I will say, I know that Carlos comes on a lot and you disagree, but you're not, like, mad at him, you're, like, having a discussion, you
No, I
know?
think it's like some of his takes are so funny because they're so absurd to me.
Yeah, and you're like, "Come
But
on, man."
also,
Yeah.
we're a lot alike in a lot of ways where he's like, "Why? Because, like, I'm a man and I'm black and you're white and you're a woman." I'm like, "No, it's like there are things that are so funny that are so similar, and then things are so different." Like, he came from a family of 10 kids. Like, that's so the family dynamic stuff, like, he gets me in other ways because he comes from this big family, but he's behind the camera and I'm kind of observing from the other side. Like there's so many things that are in common, but then things that are dissimilar. But in a lot of cases, we have similar thought points about especially different talent, but constructs of a show we can completely disagree about. It's kind of funny.
Well, that episode's out today on
Today, yeah,
Wednesday?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
This will come out on Wednesday too.
And you know what you're gonna like? Saturday, I have an episode for my Saturday series with a woman named Lindsay Albanese, and she's really funny, and she's on TikTok, and she used to be a celebrity stylist. And, she'll do videos where she's like, "I just went to Zara, like, this is what you guys should get." But
Oh,
when
I
in
need
talking to
that.
her, she's great. She, tells you what it's really like to be a celebrity stylist, like, how awful it actually is.
Oh, I'm sure it's terrible.
Yeah.
My God, the body dysmorphia alone.
Yeah, no, she said sometimes celebrities would corner her and scream at her. She was like felt like she was trapped in people's houses.
Yeah.
Yes, like crazy.
And Lindsay Albanese is Albanese?
Yes. You're
Yeah.
gonna love her. Yeah. She's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is like the style. If you wanna wear this, this is how you wear it."
Oh, I love that. I need help all day, every day. I need
Yeah, no,
help.
she's great. You guys will love her. Yeah.
Okay, that's Kate's Saturday series, guys. You should check that out.
Yeah.
Last week she had Julia Sweeney. That was really good too.
From Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're
Yeah.
right. You and I know who Julia Sweeney is, but probably any younger person may not
Probably
know.
not.
Probably
Yeah, no,
not.
no,
She was
no.
on Saturday Night Live. She did the It's Pant. Is it Pat? Is
And
it a
she was
guy
in
or a
that
girl?
skit with Chris Farley when he was the motivational speaker. She was sitting across from David Spade. And she said when she first got to New York.
I used to live in a van down by the river.
Yeah,
That
that
guy?
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. She was in that skit. She also was standing in the wings on the side, like her first trip to New York to the show after she was cast. She witnessed the Chris Farley, Patrick Swayze, Chippendales dance.
Classic.
She said she laughed so hard whenever it was skits with Adam Sandler and Chris Farley. Like could
Yeah.
not keep it together.
Some of that stuff is so funny.
I
So
know.
funny. Everybody follow Kate Casey. She has an amazing Instagram. It's KKCCA.
Yep.
And
And TikTok it's Kate Casey, and Twitter and Threads at Kate Casey. And I've got bonus Patreon episodes. Like I've had one recently where I went deep diving this scandal in the Hamptons with a man who passed away. And also I live in the same town as Christina from the Coast, and I tell you a lot about that divorce.
yeah, I am a member of Kate's Patreon, and I would recommend it.
Well,
There you
thank you.
go.
And back at you.
Yeah.
Back at you.
All right, everybody, follow me on Instagram at Pink Shade Pod, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be talking Bravo with Deanna Chang.
Oh, fun.
Bye. Yeah, bye. Ads not read by me, Mary Payne, don't necessarily reflect the views of Pink Shade. If you'd like to listen to ad-free, you're going to go on over to Supercast or Patreon, and you can find the links to Pink Shade Prime at pinkshadepodcast.com.